Steve Rogers knew he was in a spaceship of some kind. He stood in the middle of an open floor underneath a transparent dome through which he could see a field of stars. He was still wearing his Captain America uniform, and he clutched his shield at his side. He was in the middle of galactic nowhere, and he wasn't alone. Other heroes had appeared all around him, all just as confused by the looks of things. Automatically, Steve performed a head count and updated his threat assessment. 3 of the Fantastic Four were present: Mr. Fantastic, the Human Torch, and the Thing.
Where's the Invisible Woman?
Steve made a mental note to ask later. Spider-Man looked around warily. His thin costumed frame crouched next to the Thing's orange rocky bulk. Several of Steve's fellow Avengers were also there: Hawkeye, She-Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, Wasp, Hulk, and Spectrum. That was good news. He knew his people, and he knew he could count on them. From the X-Men, there was Nightcrawler, Colossus, Kitty Pryde's pet dragon Lockheed, Wolverine, Rogue, Cyclops, Storm, and Charles Xavier. Another note went into Steve's mental situation file. After assessing the threat level, Steve should ask Xavier what he knew about this. In addition to being a telepath, Xavier was often in the know about global-level threats before anyone at S.H.I.E.L.D. had an inkling of their existence. Steve completed his circle and noticed one person who stood out like a sore thumb.
Magneto.
The X-Men's mortal adversary. Steve almost flattened Magneto with his shield, just on general principle, but it wasn't in Steve's nature to hit a man without provocation. Magneto was the only visible enemy, and he looked as thunderstruck and confused as the rest of them. After the first few seconds, when everyone else was doing more or less what Steve was doing, the questions started to come.
How did we...
Where are we?
Oh, I got it. We're on some kind of giant ship in outer space.
Spider-Man shot out a web to an overhead girder and swung up to stick himself to the transparent dome. He couldn't just stand around like a normal guy, Steve thought. But hey, he was younger than the rest of them, or at least that's how he always acted, with the wisecracks and showing off. Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, seemed to be assessing the situation as if it were a puzzle just for him to solve. That's how he saw everything, Steve figured. For the millionth time, Steve wondered how the blue fabric of his suit handled all the stretching. Reed could have made a killing if he'd patented that.
No identifiable origin. These gauges look like Kree, Shi'ar. I'll have a handle on it soon.
Brain Trust? Xavier? Banner? Any idea how we got here?
Steve was looking at the Hulk when he finished asking the question. It was difficult for Steve to reconcile the presence of Banner's mind, trapped in a body full of the Hulk's primitive rage.
Teleportation, some kind of dimensional breach, hard to tell.
That's obvious, Richards.
Noting the edge in Banner's voice, Steve turned to Iron Man next.
Tony?
No idea. Reed's the expert.
Steve cocked an eyebrow. It was unlike Tony Stark to admit anyone else was more of an expert on anything.
Let's set some groups and start exploring. If this is a ship, we'd better find out how it works. We'll break it up into territories for each team.
Hold on. We weren't together on Earth. Why are we all in the same place now? Did we all get picked for some kind of galactic dodgeball game? I mean, I was getting a sandwich.
We were all in the Baxter building. Where's Susan?
Steve took note. Even Reed didn't know why his wife, Sue Richards, the Invisible Woman, wasn't there.
Typical Reed. Only just now noticing my sister is missing.
We're all missing some members. Not all of the X-Men are here, or the Avengers either.
Well, Cyclops, not all of us are members of some fancy team.
Nothing fancy about the X-Men, bub.
Wolverine and the rest of the mutants were in their uniforms too, as if they'd been ready for a fight.
We're here. Let's figure it out. What I want to know is, what's Magneto doing here?
Steve took a step closer to Wolverine in case he had to stop a fight from breaking out. Then, movement outside against the field of stars caught his attention.
Heads up. 4 o'clock high, another ship.
I sense other humans. There. Our enemies.
Who?
The other ship drifted closer. It too was domed in what appeared to be glass, but Steve couldn't identify the figures within.
Kang the Conqueror, the Wrecking Crew, Absorbing Man, Dr. Octopus, Molecule Man, the Lizard, Dr. Doom. Another, perhaps several others, something, another mind, is shielding them against my psionic investigation.
Pretty random, just like us. Only mean and ugly. Hey, Spectrum, maybe you can do your light speed thing. Zip over there and back before they notice you?
Hold on. Don't go off half-cocked. We don't want to start a fight before we understand what's going on here.
Speaking of fights, I'm with Wolverine. What's this mook doing here instead of joining his buddies up there?
And Grimm's rocky frame was poised for a fight, and Steve knew even Magneto might have trouble against the thing.
I might as justifiably ask why I am cast among such as you.
Gang, we've got a bigger problem. Literally.
Spider-Man pointed, and now the other ship was close enough that they could all see it didn't just contain a motley assortment of their human enemies. It also held Galactus. He loomed over the rest of the forms in the vessel. This was a whole new category of danger. Galactus was as old as the universe, and as powerful as any ancient civilization had imagined its gods to be. He wandered in the universe in search of planets he could consume, always searching for a way to sate his uncontrollable hunger. No one in the group of heroes could match that kind of power. If they had to fight the occupants of the other ship, and Galactus took their side, it was going to be a very short fight.
Bigger problem.
Charles Xavier's mind touched that of another. Not one of his allies, not one of his enemies. An ambient consciousness, a field of thought and desire, infusing the space around Xavier with knowledge of its presence.
The problem is discerning how and why we have been divided.
And why a murderer is a member of our group.
Murderer? I have killed, but I have never murdered. Unlike some of you.
As he said this last, Magneto looked Wolverine square in the eye.
Stand down, Logan.
Facing Magneto at the head of the X-Men, Storm held out her palm toward the rest of the group as a signal for them to keep their cool.
So, you have brought your hatred with you. Perhaps I should ensure my own supply of it is adequate.
I don't think you've ever been short on hate. You are wrong to presume everyone else carries as much as you do.
You lecture me, Aurora Monroe. When you have seen what I have seen, then you can tell me about hate.
The X-Men have all been hated, Magneto. We're mutants like you, and we're not going to rehash all this when we're on a ship of unknown origin in the middle of interstellar space and none of us know how we got here. Stand down.
Scott Summers, Cyclops, felt a strange bending sensation that always built in the moments before Magneto unleashed his abilities, as if reality itself was warping with the power of the gathering magnetism.
This is suicide. We're in space, and you're going to implode the ship around us? Don't do it, Magneto!
Scott's hand stood ready at the visor that held back the destructive force of his optic blasts.
And why not? Would you rather I wait until all of you decide to turn on me? Is that your preference? I am not your fool.
Whoa, what's going on here?
Unglaublich, Professor.
Everyone turned to look, even Magneto.
Wow!
There was nothing that could break up a potential fight, like seeing a paraplegic stand up out of his wheelchair. Everyone stopped. Scott dropped his hand away from the toggle at the side of his visor.
Professor?
Astonishing, isn't it? I don't know what to make of it myself.
How did you...
Chuck, how did it even occur to you to stand up?
Xavier looked at Wolverine for an extended moment. Just long enough for Scott to realize that 1, Xavier had an answer, 2, he wasn't willing to share it with Logan, and 3, he didn't want the rest of them to know either. That kind of secrecy did not strengthen a team, it tore a team apart. He and Xavier had been through plenty of arguments about leadership before, but it was crucial under the circumstances that they all stay on the same page. They couldn't afford secrets.
Guys, I know seeing Xavier walk is pretty cool and all, but can you take a peek outside and tell me if you're seeing what I'm seeing?
They all turned their attention back to the ship's clear dome. And if seeing Xavier walk had surprised them, what they saw outside left them stunned. The stars were blinking out. They dimmed to indistinct smears against the blackness of space, and then they were gone. One after another, in groups and clusters across the 180-degree field of vision afforded by the dome. The heroes watched, astonished, their quarrel with Magneto forgotten for the moment.